Welcome, my friends, to the Bucklerverse. It's a weekly look at all things geeky and nerdy through the lenses of me, your host, podcasting's Danny Buckler. All these things are perceived through my own filter. There is no notes. It's all off-the-cuff stuff, this. You're very welcome. If you want to subscribe, why not do so? If you're watching the YouTube version, that is. Also, hit the like button, the bell, etc., etc. If you're still here after that, I've had a wonderful week. This week's Bucklerverse is... I've been driving about a fair old bit, you know, a couple of gigs here and there. I'm back in the UK after my sojourn around Europe for the summer, working. Now it's gigging back here and the nights are drawing in, the trees have got no leaves on them, there's a briskness in the air and a dampness here in the UK. And a munty feeling everywhere I look because let's not mince words. The Lecky Bill, am I right, guys? But what's been cheering me up no end is I have been listening to the audiobook Garth Marengi's Tome. It came out last week. I beseech you, this has been a strong week for me comedically. I mean, stuff I've seen, not what I've done. And this is one of the things that's really enhancing my life. I'm halfway through it. I shouldn't really be talking about it till I've finished it, I know, but it's so good. I've had to pull over 3 times this week. I've had to pull over from laughing so hard. I'm a massive fan of Garth Marengi. My first Edinburgh festival that I ever did, I did a show with my friend Mandy Mudin. It was called Two Funny Magicians. We're going way back here, way back. Too many years for me to mention it as I'm trying to keep my age a secret. But show business is a fickle bitch. Your age leaks out, your work dries up. But no surgery. If you're watching on YouTube, no plastic surgery here. So, my first Edinburgh festival, very young, very green, very naive. Still in that phase in comedy where you think, I'll do Edinburgh once and that'll be me a star. And I did it with my friend Mandy Mudin. We did a show called Two Funny Magicians. Half an hour each at the Assembly Rooms. We've got one review that I will never forget. It was it was called Two Funny Magicians, and the review was, they're neither funny nor magic. That was it. The Telegraph. Two funny magicians are neither funny nor magic. Oh, I hope he's watching this. Look, cruel reviewer from the Telegraph, see what I've become. 57 viewers can't be wrong. But I had an absolute blast though, that Edinburgh. Probably one of the most fun I've actually had up there. But it was good. But the reason I mention it is that in the same venue across the hall was a little show called Garth Marengi's... It wasn't called Dark Place. What was it called? It was called something else. Oh, it's gone. I do apologise. But it was Garth Marengi. It was what would become Garth Marengi's Dark Place. But performed live. No one knew who they were. It was Matthew Holness. I'll talk more about him in a minute. And Richard Iode and a few of the others that you saw in the series, and it was phenomenal. Everyone was talking about it. And it won the Perrier Award when it was still the Perrier Award, and that still meant something. I can't even tell you who's won the last 4 or 5, and its name keeps changing now. But when it was the Perrier Award, when it was being won by people like Lee Evans, you know, it was a big deal. Daniel Kitson won it, and the year that I was there, it was Garth Marengi, and it was just a great show. It was. Yeah, tremendous. It was basically Dark Place live, but the creativity involved in it, making that work, was just second to none. And unique, very unique. That style of comedy, it became a thing for a bit, with like the Mighty Boosh, people of this nature. And but it was new then. It was, and I loved it. I really did. Yeah, really did. We shared a venue, and we had Stephen Berkoff 2 doors down as well. That was interesting. He was doing his Requiem for Ground Zero. I met him round the back. Berkoff, my first encounter with him. I saw the show. Oh, God, I loved it. I really loved it. And it was proper Berkoff. It was just him on stage, acting out 9/11 of all things. The towers, everything done. His you know, one of those, an artist responds to what is happening in the world. And it was an intense Berkoffian melodrama. And I met him round the back because we were sharing a dressing room space. You know, like a community dressing room at the Assembly Rooms then. And it was divided into sections. You've got basically a table and a coat rack. And he'd built a tent around his table so that he could have silence. He was getting really... So the first time I met him, I came round the back to get some stuff, and he was there shouting at the guy that ran the assembly rooms, "Why do I not have silence?" And the guy's going, "Well, it's the thin walls, the venues, other shows are running. I just want this silence." And then the second time I went round the back, he was there on his own. And I literally, my heart was in my throat. I was terrified of him. Really intimidating. But I did go over to him and say, "Oh, Mr. Berkoff, I just want to say I'm a massive, massive fan. And that show was incredible," which it was. I really enjoyed it. And... it's just great to actually meet you in the flesh, sir, and thank you for everything. And just to share a venue with you is incredible. And he said to me, "I'm glad you got to see me before I fall off my perch." Perch. The word perch delivered like a threat. But he did shake hands with me and he smiled. But there was a definite sense of, "And that's all you're getting from me, my old son." And he turned away. Don't expect me to go into details about the filming of Rambo First Blood Part 2, in which he is superb as the villain. Oh, what a weird career that is. 1 minute he's Coriolanus, Shakespeare, he's talking about the arts and the festivals. The next minute he's out in the jungle with Stallone, delivering sinister lines. "You may scream, there is no shame." Coming out of the sky in that helicopter. Ooh, Berkoff. Anyway, so that was my first encounter with the Garth Marengi thing. And then, of course, Dark Place becomes a TV series, which I loved the bones of. I bought the DVD. Just a brilliant, brilliant series. I'm sure you know all about it. You've seen it. And if you haven't seen it, indulge yourself. Get it on the Amazon Prime. It's well worth it. Proper fun. I really love it. It's if you don't know what it is, it's a sort of spoof horror show from the 80s. Garth Marengi is a horror author who's very clearly based on Sean Huston? Sean Huston, I think that's his name. The guy that wrote Slugs. There was a thing, like in the 80s, there were all these horror authors that wrote sort of, I think there was even a word for it, splatterpunk. Horrible, gory, nasty horror novels that were a bit shit, but that teenagers bought, me being one of them. I was obsessed with them. And there was Sean Hudson, who wrote Slugs, and a really nasty one about an undead gangster coming back for vengeance. And they were all rotten. And he was and if you see him in an interview, that's Garth Marengi. It's obvious. Leather jacket, tinted glasses. Nothing wrong with those. Nothing wrong with a tinted pair of glasses. But, the voice and the attitude and everything about him. There's a couple. Guy N. Smith's another one. I should do a special show just on these. Guy N. Smith wrote Night of the Crabs. In fact, Sean Hudson in an interview said he read Night of the Crabs, thought, "This is a piece of shit. I can do better than this." And that was his sole motivation for writing Slugs. And no training, no skill, just did it. Just a bloke in his flat just wrote these horrible novels. But they went out and they sold like mad. I think Slugs is even a film. But they were the basic, and Garth Marengi's a riff on them. And getting into them makes you appreciate Garth Marengi all the more. And Dark Place is a TV series in which he's also acting in it, and Richard Ayoade's in it. It's a very, very funny show. And yes, and that's just come out. Terror Tome is a new book he's written as Garth Marengi. It's 3 tales of terror in a novel, and it's just phenomenal. If you love the character, you'll love it. But get the audio book. I really recommend the audio book, because him reading it is hilarious. He's doing all the voices and the bits. I love that. I love anyone that brings character to something. Just make something visually and auditorially interesting, much like this podcast, I think you'll find. Give us a like if you agree. Give us an iTunes review. Why not tell a friend? But I've been listening to this audiobook, and I don't want to spoil it for you. I won't tell you the scenes, just that it involves the word Platon. But I had to pull over and just sit on the side of the road and cry for 5 minutes. I couldn't stop laughing. Really brilliant. I have a Matthew Holness story. So I've met Matthew Holness twice. And the first time was of all places, it was at Jongleurs in Camden. Now, Jongleurs is still around now, but it's different. It's been taken over. It's under new management, and it's not what it was at all. It's still got a good night out, by the way. I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, but the old Jongleurs was the chain of clubs. They had custom-built venues, 19 of them at their peak, and they could be either the best gig of your life or the worst. You know what I mean? Some of them were particularly harder than others. And, I've got some stories about Jongleurs Bow, and don't get me started on Nottingham. But it was a great time in comedy, a great time to be a comedian when they were around, because you could just, you got a hotel, you were there for 3 nights. It was a proper comedy club. Mismarketed, but, no one's ever going to get that right. Try listening to some comedians, mate. Maybe ask them what's going on, yeah? But, oh God, that tone of voice. I hate that tone of voice. Even in jest, I hate it. What am I doing? Back on track, Buckles. But so I was at Jongleurs Camden, and he turned up to do an open spot. Now, straight away, that was odd, because Garth Marengi's Dark Place was an established thing, and there was no need for him to do an open spot for Jongleurs Camden. And but he turned up, and he won the Perry Award a couple of years before. Dark Place was doing really well, and he was a cult figure. And what he was actually doing was he was trying out a character. He was trying out Miriam Weir, who's a folk singer character that he does in a show that had not yet then been filmed, Man to Man with Dean Lerner, which was a spin-off of Dark Place. It's a spoof talk show. Again, well worth you seeking out, well worth your time investment. Very, very funny. And in that, he plays a different character every week. He's the guest every week, and Dean Lerner is the talk show host, Richard Iode. And he's a great character comedian. He really is. And he was trying one of the characters out, because the 10 minutes that he did at Jongleurs is the 10 minutes that character does at the opening of that show when he sits down and does a performance as a spoof folk singer. But Jongleurs Camden ain't the room for it. You know what I mean? It's a rough hole. But he doesn't give a toss, because that's not why he's there. He's one of those guys that's absolutely in his own... He's centred in what he's doing. He knows what he's doing. He's there with purpose. He just wants to get this 10 minutes out. He doesn't really care that much how it goes. It's just trying this material, getting the beats, working out what needs tightening up. And he went up and he did it. And it was one of those weird ones where it was the best thing on the night that got the least response, just because the audience it was not for them. This is comedy that you have to listen to. This is comedy that requires thought and processing. It's not late night Camden Saturday pissed coke comedy, which is what everyone else was doing. And I was doing a spot there. I wasn't doing that. I was to do my usual Jongleurs thing of sweating cobs and hoping to get through it without getting murdered. They weren't my target audience. I love those days, but they weren't my target audience. When I say he was the weakest thing on that night, I obviously don't include myself. I was the weakest thing on that night. Let's not mince words. Let's not pretend I was. You know what I mean? It was horrible. But I'm sat there watching him. It was fascinating, because I didn't know what he was doing, but I worked out this is a means to an end. This is not him doing an open spot for John. Anyway. Then the compere walks on, who shall go nameless, but one of those guys that just did Jongleurs and nothing else, and did the same 20-minute set his whole life, his whole career, and still does now. Hasn't changed a bloody word of it in 20 years. Worked out this 20 minutes that he can take around, and that's what he does. Just wanders on, and bitter as all. Like the last one to put in a writing shift, but the first one to moan about the fact he's not a star. And these new comedians, that sneering, this new lot, I don't know that they're born, a new lot. It's what you sort of hear now on cruise ships sometimes. Not always, in fact, not from most, but you'll occasionally get a cruise ship comedian that will be, new comedian, are you? Alternative comedy, which isn't even a thing anymore. Alternative comedy, alternative to comedy is what I say. And then goes on stage and starts talking about doing the ship act that everyone does. Anyway. I'll tell you who was a good comedian, Bernard Manning. I had an act on a ship say that to me once. I know all about comedy. I learnt everything from Bernard Manning, so, patronising. I learnt it all from Bernard Manning. Like, that's a big right hand, that's her move. Oh, I learnt about comedy from Bernard Manning. You know what the audience on that particular, fair enough, love. That explains an awful lot about you. But so another piece of the puzzle will just move into place now. With love, jog on. But where was I? So this compare wanders on after Matthew Holness has just done brilliance to, people that aren't capable of receiving it due to their state, and says if he keeps going with material like that, one day they might even give him the Perrier. He'd done a similar diss on Daniel Kitson a couple of weeks before, where it was like he was going on about, do that, and that, and they might even give you the Perrier. Fuck off. But Holness didn't even notice, because he did what he wanted to do. He got straight in the dressing room, notebook out, and away he went. Brilliant it was, brilliant. I didn't get to see him afterwards because he was gone. By the time I got in the dressing room, he'd shut off. I imagine he was doing another one that night. Then I see Man to Man, there it is. That's why he was doing it, and there it is. And it's a brilliant thing, watch it. But I did get to meet him again a few weeks later, just by chance. We were both in the cinema store shopping. This is back in the day, no internet, so you had to kind of, to see any sort of obscure film, you had to go to the cinema store because they imported the DVDs from America. You get the films you couldn't get here. And didn't they mark them up? Didn't they have a cash cow go in there? It wasn't black market. You had to get the special multi-regional DVD player, and then that was where you went. No Amazon then. Can you imagine? Truly aging myself here. But anyway, there he was, just in his cardigan, like me, going through the cult film section, looking for weird horror stuff, and obscure women in prison films for pleasures, and sorry, they had some smut in there, but like looking for obscure horror titles, etc. And I got to look him in the eyes. I said, Matthew, you don't know if you remember me, but I was at Jongleurs about 5-6 weeks ago when you did your thing. He went, oh, yeah, man, yeah. And he was lovely. We had a little chat about films. Oh, you like this shop? We had a little talk about films and the shop and everything, and that was it. That was my one encounter with him. Lovely man, very sweetheart. And, I recommend it. Garth Marengi's Tome. Get involved. It is absolutely one of the funniest things you'll ever hear. I do love a comedy. My other favourite one's the Doug Stanhope one about his mum. That's incredible. That'll get another chat another time. This is not about that. But, yes, Tome. Check it. What else can I tell you? And I also saw Jon Richardson's new show last night. Jon Richardson is on tour at the moment. I believe the tour is, if you're listening to this, by the way, in 2022, Jon Richardson's on tour at the moment. If you've come from the future, when this is the biggest podcast / show on the planet, when this is massive and I'm in America hosting the BAFTAs, when I'm not working on a project with my cool friends, and you've gone through the archives on YouTube to see what I was doing back in the day, welcome to the past. But if you're listening to this as it's coming out, Jon Richardson is currently on tour, and I recommend you go and see it. Fine, wherever it's going to be, go and see it. Like he needs me to promote it on this. Do you know what I mean? He's got a massive... It's going to sell out anyway, deservedly. But, oh, God, it's the best... What is it? About hour. He must do about an hour and a half, 2 hours nearly, of stand-up comedy I've seen all year, including all the Netflix shit and all the specials I've watched. Just phenomenal. Every time a different show. Every time it's so creative. But this particular one, really, I laughed hard. Full disclosure, I do know the bloke. Obviously, I mean that's not a secret, I don't think. But I also have emotional critical distance. I can look at it objectively, and it was just free and joyous. And just funny. It's just a show that literally exists just to make you howl. And the audience loved it. They went with it. And rightly so. It's a show you get swept up in. I love those sort of comedians, the world builders. They build a world, invite you to join them in it. And I just thought it was wonderful. I cannot recommend it enough. That'll sort you out. I'll sort you out. Doctor, I'm depressed. I don't know what to do. I recommend you go and see Jon Richardson the clown. He's playing the theatre this weekend. That will cure your depression. Oh, but doctor, you don't understand. What? I'm Danny Buckler. Nothing works. So, yeah, what a really, really good night out that was. And now, something not quite so joyous, but something that happened this week in the world of geekery that I would like to just talk about very, very briefly at the end of this here Bucklerverse. Now, I've got the Wikipedia here. This is all off the cuff stuff, but I don't want to get things wrong with dates and that, you know. So Jason David Frank passed away. Jason David Frank, if you don't know, of course you know, he was the Green Ranger in Power Rangers. Now, I'm not going to pretend here that I'm a massive Power Rangers fan and that this has affected my life like that. You know, like Kevin Conroy, last week's show, if you listen to it, that did affect me a little bit because I've been into Kevin Conroy for years. Jason David Frank, I haven't been. Power Rangers wasn't my thing growing up. I think I just missed it. I was just slightly too old when it appeared. And it never really registered, and I didn't care for it. I didn't like that manga. I don't like manga very much. I don't like that styly of thing. Battle of the Planets is where I tap out there. That was my closest thing to like in a manga. So he passed away, and then and I didn't particularly. I've got to be honest, it didn't really, affect me until I realised who he was, because I've been following him. I've been following him for the last couple of years. But I didn't put it two and two together. Not because of Power Rangers. There's an actress that I follow who's wonderful. Rachel Brooks Smith. R. Brooks Smith, she is on Instagram. And she does like some mainstream stuff. She's in some of those dance films. She's a dancer, a fitness person. But she's also... why are you following her, Buckles? But I was following her because she does cult stuff. There's this wonderful world of straight to Amazon sci-fi movies and straight to Amazon horror movies. And some of them are brilliant. And some of them I just love watching them because it's a noble attempt. But some of them are absolutely brilliant, phenomenal. They got me through the lockdown. And she appears in films of that nature, and they're like great because some of them are like there's no budget to speak of, but they create the feel of a sci-fi blockbuster. And as you're watching it, you get the sense that everyone is having fun. So I follow several actors that appear in films of this nature, and one of those actors happens to be R. Brooks Smith, and she's in this new thing, Lair of the White Dragon. And because she's in that, I started following their Instagram, and I've loved following the story of it. And it was him. It was Jason David Frank. That's how I knew him. And he's behind it. It was his brainchild. I don't know. He was the producer. He was the lead actor in it. And it's been growing over the last... I've loved watching it grow because the casting, they've been sharing photographs of the making of it, starting right from back with nothing, like the first day in costumes, the new costumes arriving. Everyone's excited. They're creating something and they're trying to build a cult. And he has been so positive throughout this. Like, he's building a new universe of superheroes that he's creating, Obviously very Power Rangers influenced from what I've seen from the photographs. The White Dragon is basically a Power Ranger with a different helmet, and there's an evil dragon apparently. But as it grows and new cast members came into it, including Rachel Brooks Smith, and then Mark Dacascos joined the cast. Immediately I'm excited because I'm a huge Mark Dacascos fan. Massive fan of him. From right back from Only the Strong. Like, I've followed that guy, and he's another one I follow on the Instagram because he just gives me a lift. And I just love that he was doing it. And he's my age. He was my age. And I need heroes, mate, right now. I'm at that weird point in life where, let's not mince words, I'm being surpassed. The new generations come through and are overtaken, and now the next round's coming through, and the round after that. And they're the ones that are going on to achieve great things in show business. And I need heroes. I need people that are ahead of me that I can still look to, that haven't necessarily made it big, but are on the road and could potentially. And he was It's why I was so excited for The Matrix Revolutions, because Keanu Reeves, it was nice knowing that a man nearly 20 years my senior can still bust out a move. And that's why I was so excited, because he was still going for it, you know? He was on there every day, going for it, creating, excited, busting out his moves, not afraid to strike a pose, not afraid to meet a fan. He took it to Comic-Con. Well, it's not even out or finished, but he took it to Comic-Con. He had banners up, and he was pitching and getting involved and posing for photographs with supporters. And it was a lovely story. It was just a lovely, lovely story. And that I was enjoying. And then I find out he's taken his own life. Not 3 days ago at the time of recording. Now, that always affects me when someone does that, because I've mentioned, this is not a mental health podcast, and I've been a little bit too open with that in the past. But I'm a failed suicide. Not a plea for sympathy, not like a kind of, although if you give me a like and a share, it might help. But not a plea for sympathy. I'm well over it. It's not, but I did try it years and years and years and years and years ago, decades ago. Couple of times, and then you get the help you need, and you find out what's going on, you work out your brains, and that's that. But to hear that he'd done that, it was that thing that there's nothing to indicate that was coming. Every post is so positive and so upbeat, and it's happening in his life, but you don't know what's really going on. Obviously you don't, you can't. And I'll be honest with you, it broke me heart a little bit. Like, when my brain put that together, and it was because R. Brooks Smith put up a tribute to him, and I suddenly, oh my God, it's the same bloke. Why didn't I not put that? It's the same bloke. Of course it is. It's the same name. It's the same bloke. Yeah. Is there a point to this? And I believe there is. And it's a point that everyone seems to make on Twitter every other day. And it's a point that I constantly forget. But it's just simply this. You don't know what's going on with someone else. Regardless of how positive they seem to be in life, how you don't know what's going on with someone else, and you can't know. And that doesn't mean you have to walk around, going up to your mates who are upbeat and happy and saying, "Are you all right, really?" Though I don't mean that, but I do mean there's an awful, just in this age of pylons and attacking, and people being pitted against each other all the time, and Twitter pylons and cancellations and all this. You've got no idea what's actually happening with the other person. You've got no idea what the real story is. You've got no idea. So what can you do? And the only thing you can do is just be kind to everyone. Be kind. And if someone pisses you off, defend yourself, but before you, and I've done it, I've done the angry tweet, I've done the angry Facebook post, but I check myself now. When I can, I check myself, and if it's not kind, I don't know what I'm trying to say. You get the idea. So yeah, that was a shame, that. And do you know what I really hope as well is that film comes out. I hope it comes out. I hope they finish it. I hope that team of people, however it works financially, however that team's made up, because he was clearly driving it, and he was sourcing the financing and everything else, as far as I can tell. But I hope that now he's passed, they finish it and they get it out. I think that would be the most beautiful thing. If that comes out, that would be a solid tribute to someone who, by all accounts, was a great guy. Anyway, there's your Bucklerverse. I hope you enjoyed it, my friends. And I Yes, and very quickly before I go, because some of you have... I've had some messages. I used to get a little bit metaphysical sometimes on it. The right side of mad, the right side of crazy, but I would go into like little spiritually type riffs and rants, and I've sort of toned that down a little bit on this particular podcast because of wanting to get an audience. And it's very hard to sell. No one knows what this is about. Do you know what I mean? You've got to sort of it's got to be about something. I'm still learning how YouTube works. But some of you got in contact and said, we missed that stuff. Can you do a bit more of that? We quite liked all that. Buckles has got you covered. So stick around this channel because I'm launching another show, a sister show to this show. The similar basic format, but it's going to go more into that side of things as well. So if you're interested in that side of things, stick around. Stuff's coming in the next few days, actually. Or potentially before you hear this. It might even be out already, depending on how these things drop, because I'm trying to get them out on the regular. So yes, the Bucklerverse is done. Thank you very much indeed for watching or listening. Massive love to all of you. Look after each other. And I will see you next time. Take care, friends. Ta-ra.